Hey guys, tonight we begin with the quiet hum and careful footsteps of a job few remember but many relied upon, medieval beekeeping. This isn't about quaint hives in cottage gardens. This is tactical, hands-on, and a little bit dangerous. You're not wearing a crisp white suit with mesh netting. You've got wool, smoke, and instinct, and you're about to try commanding a few thousand tiny soldiers who fly, sting, and don't care what century it is. You probably won't survive this, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You rise before the sun. Not because you're noble, or disciplined, or inspired, but because bees don't wait. The wooden door creaks behind you as you step outside, cold dew soaking through the thin soles of your shoes before you make it 3 paces from the house. Your breath forms ghosts in the air. The sky is barely blue, just a smudge of pale silver over the frost-hardened grass. You walk quietly. The hives don't like surprise. They're scattered in tidy rows, straw skeps, some woven like upside-down baskets, others patched with mud and moss. They lean a bit, like soldiers who've been standing at attention too long. Most are quiet. That's good. One, though, is already humming like it knows something you don't. You reach for the smoker. It's a crude thing, clay pot, narrow spout, handful of burning twigs that smell like rosemary and old wool. You puff gently near the entrance of the first hive. A breath of smoke drifts in like a warning. I'm coming in, please don't kill me. This is the ritual. Smoke, pause, listen. Lift the skep carefully, tilt it, never rush. Bees are like memory, agitated when disturbed too quickly. Inside, it's chaos disguised as order. Wax combs hang like golden drapery. The queen is somewhere in there, fatter than the others, slow, silent. You won't see her today, but you know she's there. You hope she is. The bees respond to scent, warmth, and sometimes mood. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers believed they could tame a hive with a certain tone of voice. Some claimed they sang to them, others swore by silence. You choose silence today. Your throat's still sore from last week's mead and regret. Your hands move slowly, not from fear, but from repetition. Pull the frame, check the comb, brush the bees with a stiff feather. A few buzz past your face, land on your hair, ignore your neck. You don't swat, you just wait. They can smell fear, or at least that's what your grandfather said. He also said bees remember kindness, and then he was stung 17 times in the ear, so mixed results. The hive's heavy, that's good. Early honey stores. Pale gold, not dark, clover maybe, or wild onion. You can never quite tell until you taste it. You won't though, not yet. First you feed them. Sugar water if it's late in the year, bits of old comb if it's early. Sometimes you talk to them when no one's around. Just a whisper, tell them the news, who died in the village. Who's been born, who left, it's tradition. Telling the bees, they call it, still do in some places, nobody knows why. But you do it anyway, because you've seen what happens when you don't. You check the next hive. This one's light, too light, you frown. Tap gently, no response. You lift the skep, inside, silence. Wax still clings to the walls, but it's cold, brittle, abandoned. Mice maybe, or mould. Or a failed queen. You kneel, hat off, just for a moment. A dead hive isn't just failure, it's loss. You mark the side with a piece of charcoal. You'll bury it later. The sun climbs a little higher, the bees are waking up now. Their hum sharpens, grows. You can hear wings beating like tiny drums against the inside of the skeps. One by one they pour out. Drowsy at first, then sharp. They spiral into the air, forming a warm, living fog around your shoulders. You stand still. Let them pass. You're part of the field now, not separate, not for this hour. There's still more to do. You've got hives to rotate, honey to strain, wax to clean. But for this moment, you stand in the middle of your little army. Soldiers made of fuzz and fury. They don't know your name, but they know your scent. And for now, that's enough. Section 2. Smoke is not just a tool. It's your strategy, your diplomacy, and on certain days, your only defense. Before you knew better, you thought the smoker was just for the bees. Now you know it's also for you. It slows them. It calms you. It gives you the illusion of control, because nothing about beekeeping is truly controlled. You carry it like a torch, like a knight might carry a sword. Not to conquer, but to survive. The smoker dangles from your left hand, still warm from the early check, while your right hand reaches into the cloth bag at your side. Inside, dried moss, wormwood, and a few scraps of old linen soaked in vinegar. You learned long ago that bees react differently depending on what you burn. Sweet smoke makes them curious, sharp smoke makes them cautious. You need cautious today. You restoke the pot with practiced ease. Your fingers are calloused from years of char and sting. A small flame licks up, then settles as the twigs catch. You blow gently. A puff. 2. Then the low, steady exhale of white smoke curling into the morning air. You approach the next hive, this one near the low stone wall. It leans toward the sun like a tired soldier warming his bones. The skep is older, patched twice with horsehair and clay. Its sides tremble faintly. You kneel, press your ear to the side, buzzing. Steady, strong but not angry. That's good. There's a tone to anger in a hive. Higher. Erratic, like a kettle left too long on the flame. You puff the smoker near the entrance. Just enough to make the guards back up. Not enough to panic them. You wait. Then slowly lift the lid. Inside is architecture. Perfect golden symmetry. The combs hang in layers like parchment in a scribe's workshop. You reach in. The bees part, reluctantly. Some crawl onto your sleeve, taste your skin with their feet. You don't flinch. You've been stung so many times now it barely registers. The first sting of the season always hurts most. After that it becomes part of the rhythm, like the ache in your knees or the crook in your back. One bee pauses near your knuckle. You can see her eyes, dark and wet, the shimmer of her wings as they fold. She lifts one leg slowly as if considering you, then she moves on. This is why you wear wool, even when the weather begs for linen. Linen is too thin, too easy for a sting to slip through. Wool gives you a second of warning, and a second is everything when you're handling 20,000 creatures who all believe the hive comes first. Your veil, if you can call it that, is linen gauze draped over a straw frame, tied under your chin with waxed cord. It smells of sweat and smoke and time. There's a tear near the edge, patched badly with nettle thread. You should fix it. But there's always something else. A bee slips under the edge once, every season or two. When it happens, you freeze. You breathe like the monks do, slow, still, surrendered. She buzzes around your ear, tastes the salt of your skin, and sometimes leaves, sometimes not. You accept the outcome either way. You've learned to. The comb is heavy with honey. You brush the bees aside with your feather, a goose quill, dulled at the tip, gently, no panic. Just a suggestion. You lift the frame, holding it up to the light. Amber shines through the wax like stained glass. You smile. The hive has done well. You set it down carefully and reach for a small blade. It's not sharp, not like a knife, more like a wedge. You slip it beneath the comb, loosen it. The bees crawl over your fingers, some reluctantly giving way, others staying defiantly put. You don't mind. You whisper, though you don't know why. Words like, easy now, or just a moment. Not for them, for you. One bee stings you on the forearm. You flinch, but gently. The sting pulses, hot and small. You keep working. The honey must be harvested before the bloom fades, before the weather turns. You can't afford to waste a day. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers developed a kind of sixth sense, whether generations of instinct and necessity gave them the ability to read a hive the way a sailor reads a sky. You're not sure. But some mornings, when you walk among the skeps, you swear you can feel which ones are restless, which ones are ill, and which ones are just waiting for you to listen. You cut the comb and place it in the basket, layered between leaves to keep it from crushing itself. You'll take it back to the cottage later, press it gently between slats of wood until the honey oozes out in thick ribbons. You'll filter it through cloth, bottle it in clay jars, seal it with wax. Some for market, some for trade, a little saved for winter. And wax, don't forget the wax. It burns slow, lights the long dark months when the sun forgets to rise. The monks will pay well for good wax. They need it for their candles, their prayers, their endless books. You sometimes wonder what they write about. You imagine it's something more sacred than bees, but maybe not. You move to the next hive. This one hums differently, higher pitched, tense. You step back, light another puff, you wait. The hum softens, you try again. This hive is younger, less settled. A new queen, perhaps, or a split swarm, still unsure if they trust you. You understand? Trust is earned, even from insects. You lift the lid slowly. The bees rise like smoke. You hold your breath. One lands near your throat, another on your cheek. You don't move. A few more seconds and they lift off again. You're in. Carefully now. You reach for the central comb. It's still being built. Thin sheets of wax like scaffolding. The bees are busy, not bothered. You check for mites. None yet. That's good, but they'll come. They always do. You glance at the sun, still low but rising. You'll have time to check 4 more hives before breakfast. You set the smoker down for a moment, wipe your brow. Smoke curls up from the pot, lazy now, soft. The air smells of ash and honey and something older. You hear footsteps, your son maybe, coming from the cottage carrying a bundle of fresh kindling. He's learning, slow but careful. That's what matters. You nod at him. He doesn't speak. Just kneels by the fence watching. He doesn't need to be told not to run, not to wave his arms. He's been stung enough to know. You gesture to the hive. He nods again. Maybe tomorrow you'll let him open one. Maybe. For now, you puff a bit more smoke into the air and step toward the next skep. The bees are waiting. And you're their keeper. Section 3. You wear your armor like a prayer, not for glory, but survival. In the tales they tell at market, knights wear chainmail, polished breastplates, and helmets crowned with feathers. You wear a smoke-dampened tunic, a patched veil that smells of time and sweat, and woolen gloves that are more holes than fabric. It isn't much, but the bees respect routine, and this has become yours. The tunic was your father's, still holds the faint scent of beeswax and old clover. You've mended it a dozen times. At the elbows, the cuffs, the back, where a particularly ambitious bee once slipped between the threads and made you dance like a mad priest in the middle of the meadow. You left it torn that year, a reminder. Your boots are simple, leather, cracked, softened by seasons in the field. They crunch faintly over the dry grass as you approach the next row of skeps. Your veil is tied low, a wide brim of woven straw stitched with linen gauze. It scratches at your neck. The strings dig in behind your ears. But it keeps the bees out most of the time. There's a reason you don't dress lightly. Bees don't care if the day is hot. They don't care if your sleeves cling to your skin or if the sun turns your back red and itchy. You cover up because experience has taught you one lesson. Bees are generous but not patient. Push them too hard, move too fast, forget your layers, and they'll remind you who rules this field. You pause at the third hive. This one's different. It has a deeper hum, the kind you feel in your chest before you hear it in your ears. You crouch beside it, squint through the veil, watch the entrance. Guards, 4, maybe 5. Moving in short, fast darts. Their legs twitch, wings tremble at a faster pace than the others. You frown. You know what this means. They're on edge. You breathe out through your nose. Set down the smoker. You adjust your gloves, check the seam on your sleeve, draw your arms tight across your chest. This is when the armor matters. Historians still debate whether medieval beekeepers had protective gear beyond cloaks and veils. Some records mention full body coverings made of moss-stuffed cloth, others dismiss it as folklore. But you've seen the old carvings in the chapel, just behind the altar. Barefoot monks in robes, faces veiled, standing among hives like saints among lions. You believe it, because you've felt it. That moment when the hive turns, you pick up the smoker again, draw a long breath. Puff once, twice, wait, then lean in. The first bee bounces off your veil, then another. They don't sting. Not yet, but the message is clear. You're not welcome today. And yet, you're here. You reach out slowly, no sudden moves. No bold grabs. You ease your hand over the skep, feel the warmth beneath your palm. It vibrates faintly like a song you can't quite hear. Then, with care, you lift. The lid comes away with a sigh of smoke and heat. Inside, the golden maze of the comb, full and heavy, shining with life. Bees swirl upward, a small cloud rising around your face. You don't flinch. One lands on your chest. Another on your glove. then 3 on your knee, moving with that deliberate slowness that always precedes a decision, sting or not. Fight or tolerate, you stay still. The linen veil shifts slightly in the breeze, brushing your lips. You breathe through the taste of smoke and wax. You begin the inspection, slowly, reverently. The comb is thick, strong. The queen is doing well, somewhere beneath this curtain of wings. You spot new brood, capped cells, glistening rows of fresh honey. You nod. Even the angry hives have their purpose. This one, with its vigilance and fire, will survive the winter better than the docile ones. You lift a frame, brush it gently. A bee stings your wrist. It happens fast. You feel the pop, the heat, the bloom of pain that spreads like warm ale spilled on your skin. You wince, but say nothing. You do not drop the frame. Pain is part of the work. You remember the first time it happened, years ago. You panicked, dropped the comb, shouted. Swatted. The bees answered back, stings in your neck, your face, your arms. Your father watched. Didn't speak, just waited until you ran out of breath and tears. Then he said, now you've met them. That's what it is. A meeting, an introduction through sting and sweat. From then on you understood. You don't master bees, you don't tame them, you earn a kind of truce. Conditional, fleeting, sacred. You replace the frame, close the skep, smoke once more at the entrance. Then you stand, shaking out your sleeves. You press your fingers gently to the sting, feel the small lump rising beneath your glove. It will swell. It will ache, you will keep working. Your son watches from the fence again. You wonder if he saw the sting, the stillness. The way you didn't fight back. He's learning, even if he doesn't know it yet. You nod to him. He looks down, then disappears behind the hedgerow. The sun is higher now. Light spills over the tops of the trees, catching the wings of bees mid-flight, turning them into glints of amber and gold. You watch one dance, figure eights in the air, a little stumble at the end, a message delivered in geometry, the waggle dance, a map written in movement. A story told without words. They say that medieval beekeepers didn't understand the dance, that it took centuries before anyone realized bees were speaking with their bodies. Maybe so, but you've always known they were saying something, maybe not where to find the flowers. But something deeper. You feel the sting begin to throb, not sharp now. Just warm, present, a reminder. You tighten the veil, roll your shoulders, move to the next skep, your armor holds, for now. But you know the truth, the bees don't fear you, they tolerate you. And that is enough. Section 4, it starts as a hum, low, even, soothing if you don't know better, but you do. You've learned to listen not with your ears but your bones. The bees speak in vibrations, and today something's off. You stand still between 2 rows of hives, trying to hear through the noise. To someone passing by, all hives sound the same, but not to you. One skep hums like a choir, another buzzes like a tavern brawl just waiting to begin. The difference matters. You tilt your head, tuning in like a monk to a psalm. There's a language here, one older than speech, pitch, rhythm, pace. A higher tone means nervousness, a slower thrum signals contentment, and when the buzzing flattens into a single tight note, anger. You move toward the troubled hive. It's the 5th in the row, one you patched last spring when a fox knocked it sideways. You remember the repair, mud, straw, a line of curse words whispered under your breath while bees danced across your sleeves like judgment. Now the patch looks fine, but something underneath isn't. You puff smoke at the entrance. The bees pour out, not in aggression, not yet, but in confusion. Their pattern is broken, flight lines tangled, 2 collide mid-air, another circles back to land on your shoulder, trembling slightly. Not a sting, just searching. You lift the lid slowly. Inside, chaos. The comb is partially collapsed, slumped like a poorly baked loaf, sticky and torn, the wax too soft. Heat, maybe, or too much moisture, or a queen that laid too fast for the workers to keep up. It happens, you ease your hand in, bees scatter reluctantly. They're not angry at you, they're angry at the mess, you understand. Disorder doesn't sit well with bees, or with you. You set the smoker down and begin repairs. One hand holds the sagging comb, the other braces the frame. You use a thin splint of willow to prop the section up, tying it in place with cord you made from last season's nettle stalks. As you work, the bees crawl over your gloves, inspecting the changes. They don't know what you're doing, but they seem to allow it. For now, this kind of repair is delicate. One false move and the entire hive could collapse. Literally, symbolically, emotionally. All at once, you move slowly, like a surgeon. Like a priest. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers believed in a spiritual link with their bees. Some say yes, citing old songs and carved bees on chapel arches. Others insist it was purely practical: wax, honey, pollination. But then they never watched a keeper mutter prayers to the hive on the morning of a new moon. You finish the brace, tuck a few wildflower petals along the base of the frame, not for function, but for calm. The bees seem to notice, or maybe you just like to think they do. You replace the lid. Not too tight, leave just enough room for breath. Standing, you stretch your back. The field is warm now, sun high enough to make your veil feel like a damp towel pressed to your face. Your hands smell like wax and smoke and something sweeter. A bee lands on your knuckle, rests there. Her wings shiver once, then fold. You hold still, letting her taste the salt in your skin. Then she lifts away, vanishing back into the sky. You smile, one of those small, rare smiles that come without reason. It's time for hive rotation. You move toward the first of the older skeps, one that's seen 5 winters, 2 floods, and once a weasel that got too curious. It's grown brittle with age. You'll have to move the colony into a fresh skep before autumn. A delicate process, like relocating a town one house at a time. You lift the hive slightly, testing its weight. Heavy, that's good, but not too heavy. You roll it gently along the ground, a foot or two to the east, shifting it toward better sunlight. Bees adjust quickly if you move slow enough. A few hover in confusion, but most follow. You wipe your brow again. The sweat mixes with the sting still throbbing on your wrist. You flex your fingers, working out the ache. From behind the hedge you hear a faint voice, your daughter this time, singing, soft, high, barely carrying across the field. It's an old tune, something about bees and blessings and barley bread. You taught it to her without thinking, and now it lives in her voice like pollen in a breeze. You hum along under your breath, moving down the line. The next hive is quiet, too quiet. You freeze. Wait, listen. No buzz, no movement at the entrance, just stillness. You lift the lid slowly, empty, not collapsed. Just gone. The combs are clean, no rot, no mold. No signs of disease, just absence. A swarm, then. They left. It happens. Sometimes a queen decides the field isn't good enough. Sometimes the hive gets too crowded. Sometimes bees simply choose to start over somewhere else. You nod. Respect it. A colony that leaves isn't lost. It's expanding. Living on. Still, there's a hollow in your chest, a silence that mirrors the hive. You mark it with chalk. You'll clean it later, maybe catch a new swarm to refill it. Or maybe not. You sit for a moment on the low stone by the path. Bees drift around you. One lands on your knee, another on the brim of your hat. You don't move. You think about the old keeper who taught you most of what you know. He used to say, bees are like people. They don't want a king. They want order. They want purpose. You never understood him fully, still don't. But you repeat the phrase sometimes, like a prayer or a riddle. A bee crawls across your finger, tiny legs, sharp and ticklish. She pauses near your thumbnail, then flies. Back to work. You rise. There's always one more hive, always one more check, one more dance with wings and wax and silence. The sun leans west now, casting long lines across the grass. You watch the shadows of bees flicker like ghosts on the skep walls. You lift your smoker again. It's cooled, needs relighting. You strike flint to steel. Once, twice. Sparks bloom, catch on the moss. A curl of smoke rises. Time to speak their language again. Section 5. You walk the line again, this time slower. Not inspecting, just watching. You've already checked each hive, nudged, smoked, and whispered your way through the morning. Now comes the part no one writes down, the quiet patrol. There's no real name for it. It isn't taught, but any beekeeper with years behind them will tell you this is when the real work happens. You look for signs. A strange pile of wax crumbs outside the skep, an odd flicker in a bee's flight path. A sudden quiet in a hive that should be busy. It's not what you see, it's what you feel change. Today, you spot it quickly. One of the hives, third from the south fence, has visitors. Uninvited ones. The first clue is the noise. A higher erratic buzz, not quite alarm, but not right either. You step closer. Two bees wrestle in the air, drop to the ground in a blur of wings and legs. One chases the other into the grass. And the defeated bee doesn't return. You know what this means. Hive theft. Not by people, though you've known that too, but by wasps, hornets, even other bees. Honey's not just sweet, it's survival. And anything that flies wants it. You crouch by the skep. A wasp hovers near the entrance. Bold, too bold, your bees rush out to meet it, 4 of them. They ram the wasp mid-air, knock it sideways, then pile onto its back the moment it hits the ground. You don't interfere, they'll deal with it. A fringe tale passed through old keepers claims bees can recognize individual faces, at least their own kind. Some say a hive knows its keeper by scent, by movement. Others say that's romantic nonsense. But you've seen a guard bee pause mid-flight and circle you once, twice, then return to the hive without sounding the alarm. Maybe they know, maybe they just tolerate you. Either way, this hive is under threat, and you need to act. You gather what you need from the shed, some mud, a thin strip of cloth, crushed thyme from the drying rack. You rub the thyme between your palms, then wipe your hands near the hive entrance. The scent will help confuse attackers. Next, you smear a bit of mud around the entrance hole, narrowing it, make it easier for the guards to defend. Too wide, and the invaders can overwhelm. The cloth goes over the top, just loose enough to allow air, but not light. Bees defend better in the dark. It's all simple, and all vital. You remember last year's raid? A nest of hornets took out 2 hives before you even realized. You found the combs shredded, wax and larvae scattered like battlefield wreckage. You buried those hives. Said nothing to the children, just worked quieter for weeks after. Some hives never quite recover. You sit back on your heels, watching the bees resume their posts. One brushes against your wrist. She doesn't sting. Just lands, waits, then leaves. A truce, for now. You move on. Further down the field, another skep buzzes strong, too strong. You recognize the sound before you reach it. The kind of deep, rhythmic thrum that only means one thing: they're preparing to swarm. You sigh, not because it's bad. Just inevitable. Swarming means the hive is strong, too strong. Crowded, full, the queen's laying faster than the workers can build. The old queen is preparing to leave, take half the colony with her, start anew. If she does, she'll vanish into the woods, maybe to a tree hollow, maybe into someone else's shed, maybe into the sky and gone for good. You can't stop her, but you can try to catch her. You prepare the swarm box, a simple skep lined with wax comb, some old frames rubbed with honey. You place it near the edge of the field, under the hawthorn tree. Sometimes they go to it, sometimes they don't. But it's worth the try. You return to the hive, listen again, the sound is louder now. A kind of anticipation you feel in your spine. You kneel, open the lid, and sure enough, swarm cells, elongated queen cells hanging low like wax teardrops. New queens being raised, you smile, new life. New beginnings, but also risk. You brush one frame aside. A large bee crawls out from beneath the others, longer, slower, heavier. The old queen. You nod to her as if in greeting. She doesn't stop, she has plans. You close the hive gently. You've done what you can. The rest is theirs to decide. Your patrol continues. Near the far wall you find a surprise, a badger print, fresh. Not deep, but clear. Clawed toes, wide heel. You mutter under your breath. You don't blame the creature. Honey is honey, but the hives are your charge, and you've already lost enough this season. You mark the area with a circle of ash and lay a few branches across the trail. It won't stop him, but it might slow him. If you hear something crash in the night, you'll know where to check. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers trained their bees to recognize intruders. Some old texts hint at it. Anecdotes about bees attacking strangers but not the keeper. Tales of bees swarming a thief's horse but leaving the monk untouched. Maybe it's true. Maybe not. But once, 5 years ago, a drunk from the village wandered into your field, bragging loudly about stealing wax to sell to the friars. He left with a face like a porcupine's pillow and never came back. You didn't say a word. You reached the final skep of the row small. Young, a late swarm from last season, just barely making it through the winter. You kneel, lift the lid. The comb is fresh, delicate, almost translucent. The bees are slow here, gentler, uncertain. You don't use smoke. You don't need to. You reach in, touch one of the upper frames. It's warm. Life is building, quietly. You let the lid fall back into place, then sit down in the grass nearby, cross-legged, like a child waiting for a story. You hear the entire field now, not just the buzz of individual hives, but the hum of the colony as a whole. Thousands of wings beating in rhythm, thousands of lives revolving around nectar, wax, and the sun's slow arc. You close your eyes, just for a minute. A bee lands on your knee. Another near your collar. You don't move. You are not separate from them. Not now. You are the keeper, the watcher. The one who listens, and the bees, they are your soldiers, but they follow no orders. They follow the sun, and you just follow them. Section 6. You sit in the grass a little longer, knees bent, elbows resting lightly, letting the earth press into your bones. The hum settles into the air around you, constant now, like a song with no end. Bees weave between stalks of wild thyme and yellow tansy. A few drift lazily past your veil, too busy for you. You've always found this moment to be the stillest part of the day. Not sunrise, not sunset, just mid-task. That quiet pocket where the work continues without your hands, where you don't interfere, don't harvest, don't inspect, you just witness. Then the thought returns. You need to find the queen, not just any queen. The one in your oldest hive, black-tipped wings, slow gait, a faint rust colour down her back. She's reigned 3 summers now, and she's getting sluggish. The workers know it. You saw the signs yesterday. More drones than usual, more nurse bees clinging to capped brood. They're preparing for change, and if you don't step in, they'll handle it themselves. Bees are loyal, until they're not. When the queen falters, they replace her. No ceremony. No debate. They simply build a new throne. You stand, knees cracking, and head to the far corner where the ancient hive leans against the fence post. It's heavier than the others, always has been. The bees here are darker, their hum deeper, their movements slower, but sure. You lift the skep and peer inside. The combs are massive, thick with age, wax dark as old parchment. This hive has seen seasons pass like breath. You insert a wedge, spread the frames slightly, and begin the search. The queen doesn't announce herself. She doesn't need to. But your eyes know what to look for, a different gait, a larger body. Workers parting for her like reeds before a boat, and then, there she is, middle frame. Crawling low along the wax, she moves slowly like a matriarch reluctant to leave the family table. Her abdomen drags slightly. Her wings quiver as she moves. You don't need to test her. You don't need to count eggs or check larval cells. You just know, it's time. You glance at the capped queen cell 3 rows down. Already prepared. The hive is 1 step ahead of you. You close the skep, sit back in the grass. There's no protocol for this, no law that says when to let a queen pass, when to intervene. Some keepers crush the old queen to give the new one a chance. Others leave it to the hive. You were taught to observe, to decide based on feeling. And this queen, this old, slow queen, deserves dignity, so you'll let the hive handle it, no interference. No exile. If she falls among her own. Still, you mark the hive with a line of red chalk. Just a note for yourself, a reminder to check again in a week. There's a breeze now, carrying the smell of wet bark and bruised grass. You walk back toward the cottage, toward the empty skeps you've set aside for splits. On the way, you stop to check the wax press. It's made of wood, carved by hand. 2 blocks that squeeze together, with a woven cloth between to strain the liquid. Honey's been draining for hours, pooling in a clay basin beneath. You dip your finger in. Taste. Warm, raw. Sharp with notes of hawthorn and nettle bloom. Early season honey. It tastes like spring still trying to prove itself. You leave the basin open. Bees will find it eventually, and they'll clean the press for you better than you ever could. Inside the cottage, your tools rest along the sill. Curved knives, strips of willow bark for hive repair, cords of twisted nettle fibre. a half-finished veil your daughter started sewing. You reach for a small jar of salve made from comfrey and lard and rub it onto the sting on your wrist. The heat has faded, but the throb remains. Your son stands near the window watching the field. He's tall now, too tall. The veil you gave him last year no longer fits, and the sleeves ride up when he bends to lift a skep. You'll need to make him a new one, maybe tomorrow. He turns to you. Did you find her? He asks. You nod. She's tired, you say. But still walking. He doesn't respond, just nods back like that explains everything, and it does. You hand him the salve. He rubs it onto a small red bump on his neck. One of the bees didn't like him leaning too close. He'll learn. Out back you've got 2 new skeps curing in the sun, straw tightly bound, coated in beeswax. One already smells of lemon balm. You rubbed it along the inside to attract scouts, an old trick passed down from a travelling keeper who once spent a summer near your fields. He claimed bees loved lemon balm more than any other herb. Historians still debate whether such herbal lures made a real difference. Some say it's nonsense. Others point to records in abbey ledgers noting increased yield in hives treated with mint and balm. You don't argue either way, you just keep doing it. You lift one of the new skeps, knock the bottom lightly, test for sturdiness. It holds, no sag, no crack. Ready. You place it near the hawthorn where the swarm box sits, just in case. You walk back to the field. The hives hum louder now. Midday warmth has stirred them into a frenzy of gathering, wings ablur, legs heavy with pollen. Some drift past your head, legs dusted in gold, eyes locked on home. You watch one land, front legs out, pausing on the skep lip before vanishing inside. Another follows, then another. A constant dance of exit and return. You crouch beside one hive, elbows on knees. A bee crawls from the entrance, pauses, then tilts her body. Another follows, mirroring the motion. They spin, circle, then begin the slow, deliberate arc of the waggle dance. You lean in. Left, straight, wiggle. Turn, again, left. Straight, wiggle, turn. The angle points southwest, toward the meadow beyond the ridge. You smile. They've found something, and they want others to know. The dance goes on for several seconds. Then the dancer lifts, flies. 5 more take off behind her. You sit back, watching the empty air she left behind. For a moment it seems to shimmer with meaning, as if the message still lingers unseen, and maybe it does. There's a lot you don't understand about bees, a lot you never will, but you've learned this: they remember. Roots, flowers, faces. Some say they even remember sorrow, that when a keeper dies the bees mourn. You've seen it. When your father passed, you wore his cloak to the hives, you told them, whispered through the veil. They were quiet for a day, all of them, not a sound from dawn to dusk. And then, just as evening fell, one hive began to hum again, then another, until the entire field buzzed back to life, one note at a time. You never forgot that. Now, standing in the sun, you press a hand to the old skep wall. Inside, the bees move as one. 1,000 tiny hearts beating in a world of wax and dark, and you are their witness. Section 7. The comb is heavy with secrets. You reach into the hive like someone reaching into a pocket full of old letters, gently, knowing the weight isn't just honey but history. The frame shifts slightly in your hands, sticky with golden rivulets. Bees crawl over your knuckles, unbothered. You're a fixture now, a part of the landscape. Today is harvest. But it's not a feast, not yet, not even close. Harvesting honey is less about reward and more about timing. Take too early and you starve the hive. Wait too long and the wax caps harden, the combs collapse, or the weather turns. It's a conversation, you ask, they answer. Sometimes with stings, sometimes with silence. You hold the frame up to the light. Honey glows inside the wax like captured sunlight. It smells like elderflower and bramble blossom, with a faint tang of something sharper, maybe nettle. You can taste it in the air before it even touches your lips. The bees buzz around you, annoyed but not alarmed. You worked slowly, respectfully. You've left the lower combs untouched, their stores for winter. You walk the frame to the press, bees following in slow spirals like sleepy sentries. The press is old, made from yew wood and iron pins. Your father built it. Your son oiled it last week. You place the comb between the plates, lower the handle slowly, and hear the soft crackle as wax gives way. Honey begins to bleed out, thick, slow, deliberate. You watch, not because you need to, but because it's calming. This is the moment you work toward every season, not the collecting, the watching. The reward isn't the honey, it's seeing the hive's labor become something you can hold. You dip a fingertip into the golden pool. Taste. It's sharper than you expected. There's a bitterness underneath, chased quickly by sweetness. The early flowers are always like this. Complex, conflicted, you don't mind? Some say medieval honey was more medicinal than culinary, thick and wild, full of pollen and bee parts, sometimes fermented in the comb before extraction. Monks believed it cured everything from stomach aches to melancholy. And in some monasteries it was used like gold, traded, measured, guarded. You believe it. Honey is currency. Memory, medicine, time. You pour the fresh honey into a clay jar, seal it with wax. The jar bears a mark, your father's scratched symbol of a curled bee, tail up. You still use it. It's good enough. You'll keep this jar, the first one. Always do, the rest will be bartered, some to the miller for flour. Some to the brewer, who swears your honey makes his mead less likely to explode. You smile at that, he's probably right. Because honey is more than food, it's an ingredient in everything. Bread, drink, ointments, even warfare if stories are to be believed. One tale claims a certain duke once soaked enemy weapons in honey to attract ants after battle. You've never tested it, but it sounds like something desperate men might try. More reasonably, honey was used to dress wounds. Its stickiness sealed cuts, and its natural properties fought infection. You've used it that way yourself, once, when your son gashed his palm on a fence nail. You packed the wound with moss and honey, wrapped it in linen, and told him to be still. He wasn't, but it healed anyway. As the honey continues to drip, you prepare the wax, scrape it gently from the press cloth, roll it into balls, press them into wooden molds. Candles. Sealants, even writing tablets use it, though you've never written more than initials. Your daughter once carved a bee into a wax slab and declared it her shield. You still have it. You remember when wax was due to the church each year, a tithe in golden curls. You'd carry it to the friar in a basket lined with sheep's wool. He'd smile, weigh it with quiet fingers, and nod. You'd nod back. No words exchanged. Just the understanding, this is worth something. In some regions, the church took honey too, or expected candles made from your wax for their mass. It wasn't asked, it was assumed, but you didn't mind, not really. The bees gave freely as long as you didn't take too much, and you never did. Not like the men who tried to steal whole hives. You still remember the night one came, hooded, smelling of ale and poor judgment. He thought the bees would sleep through his thievery. They didn't. You found him the next morning, half naked in the brambles, swollen, breathless, and muttering apologies to God, bees, and anyone else who might be listening. You helped him up, poured a bit of vinegar on the stings, and never mentioned it again. He never returned. Some people say you can train bees like dogs, that with scent, rhythm, repetition, they'll learn your touch. Some old keepers swore by clapping 3 times before opening a hive. Others claimed if you whistled the same tune each day, the bees would grow calm. Historians still debate the truth of that, but you have your own habits. You wear the same cloak, you hum a certain tune, you never open a hive with your right hand first. Why? You don't know, but it feels wrong not to. And the bees, maybe they don't notice, maybe they do. But the hive that once stung you 22 times in a single morning hasn't done it since you began wearing your father's gloves. Coincidence? Maybe. But you wear them anyway. You finish pressing the last comb. The jar is full now, warm in your hand. You cork it, wipe the rim, set it on the shelf. Outside, the sky begins to shift. Afternoon slips into that soft pre-dusk. Long shadows stretch between hives. The bees slow down, fewer in the air now. Just a few stragglers returning, legs heavy with the last pollen of the day. You head back into the field, not to work. Just to walk. It's a habit you picked up after your father passed. He used to pace the field in the evenings, hands behind his back, eyes soft. You asked him once what he was looking for. Trouble, he said. But when you walked beside him, you never saw anything but peace. You pass the skeps one by one, nodding as you go. A few bees drift around your hat. One lands on your glove. Rests, then lifts off again. You pause at the youngest hive. The one your daughter named. The small queen, she calls it. You don't correct her. Names have power. You kneel, press your ear to the side. Inside humming, gentle, content. You close your eyes just for a moment and listen. Section 8. You don't remember exactly when you started thinking of the bees as border guards. Maybe it was that summer, the one with no rain, when the wildflowers dried too soon and every living thing grew desperate. Or maybe it was that spring when your strongest hive vanished overnight, leaving behind only wax, silence, and one angry toad sitting smug in the entrance like a squatter in a collapsed temple. But something about the way bees patrol the edge of their world, tireless, territorial, precise, reminds you of soldiers. Not the kind in storybooks, not those who swing swords and shout glory. These are quieter, leaner, focused on duty, not spectacle. You walk the perimeter of your field. It's not marked with fences or banners, just habit and memory. The neighbours know not to let their goats wander near the south hedge. You didn't ask. The bees made the point themselves one spring. One goat, one hive, one very swollen tongue later, and the lesson stuck. The edge hives, the outermost skeps, are your first line of defence, and they know it. Today, you stand before one of them, an old hive, the dome darkened by years of wind and sun. You call it the North Watch, though no one else does. You don't even say it aloud. It's just what it is. You crouch, listen. Buzzing, steady, not frantic, not calm. Alert, you step closer, watching the bees come and go. Their flight paths are tight here. No lazy loops, no long, drifting arcs. These bees fly like they mean it, out, back, out again. Always in pairs, always scanning. There's been activity near the eastern hedgerow, wasps maybe, or scout bees from someone else's hives. You know the signs, guard bees posting up in 3s instead of 2s, a higher-pitched hum around the entrance. A few bees flying backward, trying to shake invaders off their tails. You puff a bit of smoke, not much, just enough to let them know it's you. They settle, briefly. Then resume. You kneel beside the hive, pressing your hand to the side. The warmth comes through the wood like breath. Alive, focused. You pull a small stone from your pocket, flat, worn smooth from years of rolling in the creek, and place it gently on the ground before the skep. A token, a habit you picked up from an old woman in the next village over who used to bury stones at the edge of her fields to keep the wandering spirits puzzled. She was half serious, maybe more. You watch a single bee land beside the stone. She circles it, then lifts away. Patrol continues. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers trained their bees to respond to scent markings or even to guard their apiaries. Some say yes, pointing to monastic scrolls and trade guild records. Others say bees simply do what bees do. You don't argue, but you've seen too many strange things to dismiss them outright. Like the time you found boot prints near your field, too close, too fresh, and the next day your hives doubled their guard numbers. Or the afternoon your daughter wandered too far into the nettles and cried out, only for a swarm from the southern hive to rush out, circle her once, then disappear back into the grass without a sting. Coincidence, maybe. But maybe not. You rise slowly, knees stiff. The North Watch is calm again. Satisfied, you leave it behind, stepping carefully around the clumps of clover. You reach the corner where 2 fields meet, yours and old Herrick's. His bees are smaller, faster, always nervous. He blames the wind. You blame him? You watch a few of his bees drift toward your hives. They hesitate at the invisible border. A few cross. Not many. One hovers too long. From your hive, 3 guards launch. They intercept mid-air, a tumble, a blur, a hard smack of wings. The intruder retreats. The guards return. No injury, no casualty. Just a warning, message received. You've heard stories, long ago in abbey halls or taverns near the coast, of bee wars. Hives fighting over territory, whole colonies rising up against one another, raids. Poisoned nectar, sabotage, too wild to be true maybe. But you've seen what happens when 2 hives grow too close, when resources are scarce, when pride runs deep, even in creatures so small. Border disputes aren't always human. Sometimes they wear wings. You return to your bench by the fence, watching the field. The light is tilting now. Late afternoon softens the colours, turns gold to amber, green to brass. Bees shimmer like dust motes caught in a breath. You remember a time, years back, when a traveller passed through with stories from the Holy Land. He claimed there were hives there the size of wine barrels, and bees trained to sting only when commanded, bees used in war. You laughed then. You don't now, not because you believe it, but because you understand that humans have always tried to turn nature into weaponry. And nature, if it plays along, only does so on its own terms. You don't command your bees, you learn from them. Your son approaches, quiet as always. He doesn't speak, just sits beside you on the bench, both of you watching the western edge where the sun starts to bleed into the hills. He's been quiet all week. You suspect he lost a hive. He hasn't said. You won't ask. Loss is part of keeping. You only learn by grieving. A bee lands on his wrist. He doesn't flinch. That's how you know he's still learning. He speaks first. The guards chased off a hornet this morning, he says. You nod. They're good at that. Do they always win? You think about it. About the odds, about the times they didn't. No, you say. But they always try. He nods, eyes still on the hives. You watch him sit there, the boy with the 2 short sleeves and the sting on his neck, and you wonder how many seasons he'll stay, whether he'll keep the field, whether he'll sing to the bees like his sister does, or walk the lines at dawn, whispering to the hives like you do now, whether he'll become the next watcher, or wander. Either way, the bees will go on. You lean back, stretch your legs, and watch as one of the guards returns to her post. She lands just outside the entrance, twitches her antennae once, twice, then slips inside. Another day defended, another tiny border held. You smile. In a world ruled by uncertainty, your bees still draw lines, and for now, no one crosses. Section 9. The wind shifts. It's subtle at first, just a gentle change in how the grasses bend, how the smoke from your nearby fire pit curls in a new direction. But the bees know it before you do. You see the shift in their flight. Paths that were once straight now loop wider, patrols stretch farther, guards linger longer at the hive mouth. And soon you smell it too. Not the wildflower scent of the meadow, not the sweet tang of ripe clover, something darker. Intruders. You walk the line again, faster this time, not panicked, just alert. The hives hum louder, especially the oldest skeps, those closest to the woods. They've seen this before. They remember. It's not people this time, it's other bees. Raids don't come often, but when they do, they come without warning. Just a few outsiders at first, drifting casually between flowers, then bolder scouts hovering near the entrance, then the attack, a rush. Dozens of bees flooding the hive entrance in a blur of legs and fury, aiming not to kill but to steal. Honey, wax, even larvae. Anything useful, anything warm. You reach the 4th hive just as it happens. There's a swirl of bodies at the entrance, a frenzy. A fight. Your bees are holding the line, but barely. You crouch, puff smoke only a little. Too much, and you'll confuse your own hive. Not enough, and chaos might win. The intruders are darker in colour. Sleeker, not yours. You watch as one is dragged down by 2 of your guards. Another breaks through. It slips inside. You curse under your breath. Historians still argue whether bee-on-bee raids were common or rare, myth or reality. Some monks wrote of winged wars that lasted days. Others dismissed them as stories to frighten young keepers. But you've seen it, more than once, the scars left behind in torn combs and broken wings. The silence that follows. You grab a small clay jar from your bag, an old trick, half folklore, half desperation. Inside, a mix of herbs crushed with vinegar, soot, and a drop of wax. You smear it around the entrance, confuses the scent trails. Some say it sends a signal, this hive is protected. Others say it's nonsense, you believe in what works, and today it works. The raiders falter, turn, retreat. Not all of them, but enough. The battle fizzles. Your bees swarm the entrance, antennae twitching, wings flaring, ready if needed, but it's quiet now. Or quieter. You kneel, press your palm to the hive wall. Inside, vibration. Not panic, not rage, just determination. The queen is still inside. You know it. You whisper, hold the line, even though no one is listening. Or maybe they are. In the aftermath, you check the damage. A few torn wings, a punctured comb. A trail of robbed cells, small but clear. They didn't get far. You sprinkle thyme around the base, a kind of offering. The bees ignore it, busy with repair. You move to the next hive, then the next. All stable, but at the far end, near the hedgerow, you find another fallen post. The skep is on its side. You kneel beside it. Bees crawl around the opening, disoriented. The combs inside are exposed to the light, swaying slightly. You smell crushed wax, see the shimmer of raw honey spilled onto the grass. A few bees fly in tight, confused circles overhead. This hive lost. Not all the bees are gone, but enough. You reach into your bag, pull a fresh skep, one of the spares you keep for swarms. You place it gently beside the fallen one, nudge a comb inside, just enough to seed it with scent and memory. You lift a handful of bees, place them at the entrance. They walk inside. It begins again. You'll rebuild this hive from fragments, just as your father did. Just as every keeper has, you carry the damaged skep to the compost pile near the cottage. It'll be broken down, burned. No reuse, not after a breach. On the way, you think of the stories. Old tales whispered by keepers too long in their fields, of great bee battles that raged across valleys, of queens captured and held hostage in dark jars, of traitor hives turned rogue, stealing workers and feeding their own with stolen gold. Nonsense, probably. But standing there, watching your bees defend, rebuild, organize, it doesn't feel like nonsense. It feels like a kind of order, like purpose. You remember last year's dispute with the keeper downriver, his bees too aggressive, his hives too close. He claimed it wasn't his doing. Nature, he said. You believed him? Sort of, but you still walked your field with heavier steps for weeks afterward, and your bees grew more watchful. You reach into your coat, pull out the small wooden token you carved last winter, a bee, wings wide, carved into a circle of birch. You hang it from a post by the fence, a symbol. Not for the bees, for yourself. You've kept the peace again. For now. Your son finds you there, standing in the fading light. He holds a skep in his hands, a small one. Unused. Another swarm? He asks. Maybe, you say. He looks to the woods. From where? You shrug. Could be ours. Could be wild. He nods. You both know the truth. Sometimes the bees return. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they come back different. He kneels, sets the new skep down. Want me to prep it? Tomorrow, you say. Let them rest. He stands again, taller than you now. Shadow stretched long behind him. One day this will all be his. You wonder what kind of keeper he'll be. You reach the last hive, the smallest one, a new split from earlier in the season, still fragile. Still learning. You crouch, no buzzing. You knock gently, once, then wings. Soft, sleepy, alive. You breathe again, this one held. You touch the side once, then stand. The bees keep flying, even as the light fades, even as the borders blur into dusk, even as the war, for now, is over. Section 10. The air turns sweet when the mead begins to breathe. You open the lid of the clay vat carefully. The scent that rises isn't the sharp sweetness of fresh honey, but something deeper, fermented, thick with history. A trace of yeast, wildflower, wood smoke, and time. The mead has been sitting for weeks. In the corner of the cellar, where the stones sweat even in winter and the spiders keep careful watch, you let it rest, undisturbed, through hot days and cool nights. Now it's ready, probably. Mead isn't an exact science, not here, not now. You pour a small amount into a wooden cup. The liquid is amber and slow-moving, the colour of late summer. You sniff once. Swirl, sip, it's lively. A little too lively. You swallow, blink, and wait. The flavour arrives late, spiced, heavy, tinged with something sharp, almost green. Nettles? Maybe the mint was too young, or maybe it's the elderflowers your daughter added when you weren't looking. She said it needed a shimmer, whatever that means. You set the cup down, it'll do. You'll bottle some for the friars, some for the midwife. The rest you'll save for the first cold night, when the hearth is full, the skeps are wrapped in straw, and the bees sleep in silence. You remember your father's mead, thicker, darker, cloudy with wild yeast. He never filtered it, claimed it gave strength. You believed him, until the night he drank too much and tried to dance with the cow. You don't filter yours either. Some traditions survive for better reasons than others. You ladle the mead into a row of glazed jugs, each corked with beeswax and sealed with a twine loop. No labels, just notches carved into the handles. 2 for elderflower, 1 for plain, 1 for nettle. The one with the star, that's the one you'll hide behind the flour sack, the good stuff. The cellar is quiet except for the drip of condensation from the ceiling and the faint rustle of something in the corner, maybe a mouse, maybe your daughter's cat, hard to say. You don't check. You carry the jugs upstairs, one at a time, careful not to clink. Each step creaks beneath your boots, the wood swollen from yesterday's rain. Outside, the sun has dipped low, painting the field with that golden wash that makes everything feel older than it is. You set the jugs on the shelf above the hearth. The clay glows warm in the firelight. You wipe your hands on your apron and look outside. The bees are still flying, not many. Just the evening crew, a few returning scouts, some late foragers, their shadows stretch long against the hive walls. You step out into the air again. The heat has broken. A breeze comes down from the hills, bringing the scent of pine and wet soil. You breathe it in. It smells like something is changing. You walk to the edge of the field where the older hives stand in a crooked row. One of them, the one your son repaired last month, is humming a strange tune. You listen, not angry, not tired, hopeful they've found something new. Your son joins you, a basket slung over his shoulder. Inside, strips of bark, a few sprigs of mint, and the last of the spring apples. You reach in, take one. It's bruised on one side, soft and sweet on the other. You bite in, feel the juice run down your chin. He asks, "Did it fizz?" You nod, swallowing the last of the mead. "Just a little," he grins. "Means it's good," he says. "Means it might explode," you reply. He shrugs. "Good, either way." You both watch the sky. A few birds wheel overhead, catching the last warm thermals before the dark. In the distance, someone's burning leaves. The smoke drifts low, mixing with the scent of the hives. You sit on the old bench by the fence. The one your daughter painted last year, badly. Blue flowers and crooked bees. It peels now, but you leave it be. Your son sits beside you. No words pass for a while. Then he says, "Do you think bees remember where they came from?" You think about it. About the way they return to hives after weeks away, how they circle home 3 times before leaving on their first flight, how they remember scent trails and flower shapes and even faces. "I think they remember what matters," you say. He nods. "I want to build a new hive," he says. "Not like the skeps, something different." You look at him, at his hands, calloused already, wax still stuck under one nail. You see your father's knuckles in his fingers. Your own stubbornness in the way he grips the basket. "What kind?" you ask. He shrugs. "Don't know yet, but something that lets them choose their path." You nod. "Start tomorrow." That's all you say. The wind shifts again, colder now. The kind that slides under your collar, reminds you that summer has begun to tilt toward memory. You stand, stretch, and walk the line of hives once more, not to inspect, not to harvest. Just to say goodnight, you place a hand on each skep, whisper a word or two. Nothing complicated, just habit. Rest. Strong. Still. Your son watches. He doesn't mock you, he's done it himself, though he'd never admit it aloud. You reach the last hive. It's silent, not dead, just done for the day. You touch the side. Cool already. You nod. Back at the house, your daughter lights the first candle of the evening, pale yellow, made from last year's wax. Its glow fills the kitchen like honey poured over bread. She hums as she moves. A soft tune, one you've heard before but never learned. You sit near the hearth, pour 1 cup of mead, just one, and sip slowly. The bees outside settle into their combs, the queen quiets, the guards tuck into the entrance. The last light fades, you raise your cup to no one, and everything. To sweetness earned, to silence deserved, to the wild, and to the keepers who listen. Section 11. Winter doesn't arrive all at once, it begins in the wings. A single gust colder than the rest, a quiet that lingers longer in the grass. The bees feel it before you do. They always do. They change their flight, less looping, more direct. They guard their entrances with a little more urgency. Fewer foragers leave. The ones that do return faster, heavier, no time to waste. You start to see the signs too. The flowers hold their blooms tighter, the mint wilts. The sun drags across the sky like a tired ox, and when you check the hives, you feel it in the wax itself, denser, darker, lined with the story of an ending season. It's time to prepare. You begin with straw, old, dry, and crinkled like parchment. You wrap it in bundles and lash it around each skep like a scarf, not tight. Just enough to break the wind, just enough to tell the hive, you are not alone. The bees don't need much, but they need enough. Each hive gets its covering. Some you double up, especially the smaller colonies, the new splits, the ones that still fly nervously. You pad their bases with moss, tuck waxed linen into the crevices. Anything to hold the heat in, anything to keep the cold out, your son helps. His hands work quicker now. He's grown into his height, no longer all elbows and curiosity. Now there's method, precision. His gloves are too tight again. He won't say so, but you see him flexing his fingers between hives. You toss him your spare pair. The old ones, he catches them, doesn't say thank you. Just nods, that's enough. Together you work down the row, hive by hive, like a funeral procession for summer. Not grief, just reverence. The bees retreat as you go, one by one, slipping into the hive, clustering tighter. They stop flying, they stop buzzing, the field grows still. You remember your first winter, the mistakes. You didn't wrap the hives right. Didn't know to tilt the skeps just slightly to drain the condensation. You lost 3 that year, opened them in spring to find nothing but silence. Wet wax, mold, the absence of motion. You cried, you remember that clearly. Your father didn't say much. Just put a hand on your shoulder and said, "Now you'll do it better." He was right. Historians still argue whether medieval beekeepers understood the precise needs of winter bees. Some claim they simply hoped for the best, leaving hives exposed and letting fate decide. Others believe they had systems, strategies passed down through oral tradition, like songs or prayers. You believe the latter, not because of what's written, but because of what's remembered. You carry hay in your arms now, dust clinging to your sleeves, the scent of the barn on your breath. You place a bundle at the base of a hive and pause. There's a bee crawling at the entrance, alone. She stumbles slightly, her wings coated in frost. She's not meant to be out this late in the season. You kneel beside her, offer your finger. She crawls on. You lift her gently, carry her to the hive, lay her at the mouth. She doesn't move for a moment. Then, slowly, she inches inside. You exhale. A small victory. Your daughter appears at your side. She carries a small pot of warm honey, thin and runny, meant for feeding. You dip a stick in, drizzle it at the hive entrance. A few bees emerge, tasting, just enough to keep them strong. Just enough to remind them, you are still here. She says nothing, just watches. Then asks, "Do you think they know winter's coming?" You nod. They always know. Are they scared? No, you say. They prepare. She seems to like that. Tucks her scarf tighter and returns to the house, boots crunching across the frost-bitten grass. You and your son continue. The last hives get the thickest straw, the softest moss. The wind sharpens, brushing your cheeks like a blade that doesn't cut, only warns. You finish just as the last light fades. The hives now look like small houses in miniature, each tucked in under its own golden roof. You stand back and admire them, the way you might admire gravestones, not for what's gone, but for what's endured. Your son picks up the tools, you pick up the basket. The two of you walk toward the cottage without speaking. The fire is already lit. Your daughter hands you a mug, warm milk with a touch of mead. She knows the kind of evening it's been. You sit by the fire, beeswax candles flicker along the mantel. Their light is softer than oil, gentler. You watch the flame dance. You listen to the wood creak. You let your shoulders relax. Outside, the bees have gone still. Inside, you do the same. There's a comfort in knowing you've done what you could. The rest is not yours to control. That's the lesson of winter and of keeping bees. You prepare, you wait. You trust, and if you're lucky, they survive. Section 12. Some nights the villagers whisper your name. They do it when the wind rises just after sunset, when the trees sway like old monks nodding through a sermon, and the bees have long since gone to sleep. It isn't fear exactly, more like awe. Unease wrapped in curiosity. They call you the bee sleeper, the whisperer. The keeper of stings. You've never corrected them. Let them have their stories. It's true you speak softly in the fields. True you walk barefoot sometimes in early spring to feel the earth warming beneath your toes. True you've stood under a full moon, arms folded, eyes closed, surrounded by skeps humming like low bells, and felt something move through you. Something older than breath, but magic? No. You're just a beekeeper. Still, the stories grow. One woman swears she saw you pull a bee from a child's mouth and whisper it back to life. Another claims your bees once formed a curtain between a storm and the village, sparing her garden while the rest of the fields flooded. Your son rolls his eyes when he hears these things. Your daughter giggles. But neither denies them. And you let the stories breathe. Because folklore is honey for the soul, slow, golden, sticky with wonder. And in winter, people need sweetness. You remember your grandfather's tales. How beekeepers were once thought to be marked, chosen, that those who could keep hives alive through the longest winters were in favor with nature itself. He told you bees could smell truth. That they knew when you lied or stole or mourned without weeping. You didn't believe him, not then, now you're not so sure. You've watched a hive go silent the day a farmer buried his son. You've seen bees return in strange patterns when a birth was near. You've heard the low thrumming chant of a hive hours before a thunderstorm, when the sky was still clear and the birds hadn't noticed yet. You don't explain these things, you just listen. This winter the bees are holding well. You check the skeps gently, just with touch, one hand pressed lightly against the straw. If there's vibration, warmth, even the faintest shift beneath your fingers, you move on. If not, you lean in. Listen harder, wait. One hive in the southern row feels thin. Not gone, but not strong. You mark it with a thread of red yarn. Just a sign to yourself, a reminder to feed it again next week if the frost lifts. Inside the cottage, your daughter adds lavender to the candles. She says it keeps the dreams soft. You believe her. You open the old wooden chest near the fire, pull out the beekeeping book your father kept. It's barely a book anymore, more like a stack of bound pages, ink-smudged, corners curled, no titles. Just drawings, diagrams, a few notations in his hand. Don't feed too early. If the queen dies, wait 3 days before replacing. Smoke calms them. So does singing. Your handwriting now sits beside his. Wild hive spotted near the ridge might be worth watching. Don't forget to breathe before opening. You smile at that last one. It's easy to forget, when the hum grows loud and the wings cloud the air, that you are still a part of the story. Not its author, not its master, just a page in the hive's history. You set the book down and rise. Outside, the moon is high. You walk to the field in silence. Snow crunches beneath your boots, thin but growing. A frost halo rings each skep, catching the moonlight. The hives look like sleeping giants wrapped in straw and patience. You don't speak, but you think the words anyway. I'm here, not for them. For you crouch beside the oldest hive, your father's favourite. Still holding after all these years. You remember the day he split that colony from a wild swarm caught in the bell tower. He wore no veil. Just stood still while they circled him, then walked home with them tucked under a woven basket like a prize. He called that hive Grace. You still do. You rest your palm against it now. There, a faint warmth, still alive. Still singing. You rise slowly, knees stiff, back aching. The aches come quicker now. You accept them. They're just the body's way of marking seasons. You glance at the tree line. The old oak where you hung your first swarm box, it's still there, empty now. But ready, always ready. Some say bees bring news. That a swarm flying into your yard means change. That bees on your window mean a message. You've had both happen. And both times the news followed. Not always good, but always needed. You walk back to the cottage, lantern in hand. Light spills around your feet, guiding you home. Inside, the fire crackles low. Your son sleeps by the hearth, one hand still holding a spool of waxed thread. He was mending a veil, fell asleep mid-stitch. You cover him with a blanket. Your daughter sleeps near the window, curled on the bench, a candle flickering on the sill beside her. You blow it out gently. The room falls quiet. You sit in the chair your father built, still warm from the fire. On the table beside you, a jar of last summer's honey catches the moonlight. You open it, dip one finger, taste. Sweet, thick, alive. Outside, the bees sleep. Inside, you dream. Section 13. Weddings in your village don't begin with music or vows. They begin with bees, a whisper to the hives, a soft word to the skeps at dawn. One by one, the bride's family walks into the field, touching each hive gently, telling them the news. There is to be a wedding today. You've done it yourself, many times, often on behalf of others. Some folks are too nervous, others think it's nonsense. But when the day comes, they find themselves stepping into the meadow anyway, eyes darting, voice trembling as they speak to creatures that never speak back. Still, they speak. Tradition. And the tradition is old, older than the church bell, older than the road through the valley. Tell the bees your joy, or they may take it from you. Tell the bees your sorrow, or they may never forgive the silence. Today, there's another wedding. You're not invited in the formal sense, but you've already walked the rows, tapped each hive with your knuckles, whispered the name of the bride, the name of the groom. You didn't have to be told. You just knew. The bees were restless last night, and this morning they flew like ribbons, bright, fast, clean lines from skep to sky, not a speck of hesitation. A good omen, the old women say, the best. You watch from your bench as the guests gather by the chapel. Ribbons strung along fence posts, a goat tied lazily to the elder tree, children in linen, too excited to sit still. The bride walks past your field on her way to the altar. She stops at the fence. You don't say a word. She nods once, quietly. You nod back, and then she walks on. Your son joins you on the bench. He has a ribbon in his hand, blue and green, not from the wedding. Something he found tucked behind one of the hives. You recognize it. It's from the old beekeeper's cloak, torn years ago during a storm when the hive lids blew off and you all scrambled into the rain with ropes and stones to hold them down. That ribbon must have gotten lost in the straw, hidden until now. He ties it around his wrist. No words. Later that evening, the feast begins, but you stay in the field, not from bitterness. Just habit, and because someone must stay with the hives. In some places it's said bees must also be fed at weddings. That a bit of cake, soaked in honey, should be left at the edge of the field. For them, you've never seen a bee eat it. But you've always left it. Tonight is no different. You bring a small piece, dark bread, dense with nuts, drizzled with this year's gold, and place it near the oldest hive. You step back. A single bee lands on it, not to eat, just to rest. A fringe belief, shared once by a travelling friar, claimed bees could bless unions, that if they flew over a couple on their wedding day, the bond would hold strong. He spoke of it like scripture. Historians still debate the truth of that. Some say it was local superstition, a way to involve the natural world in human rites. Others point to letters and records, gifts of wax sent to newlyweds as symbols of endurance and structure. You don't care for the argument. You've watched bees build a new comb after collapse. Seen them huddle in cold, share warmth, mourn a queen, then raise another. If that's not love, it's something close. The music drifts from the village now, soft pipes, clapping, someone singing a half-remembered tune. Your daughter hums it too, sitting in the grass near the hive called Grace. She's plaiting strands of straw into a ring. Your son takes the ribbon from his wrist and ties it through the braid. She places it beside the hive entrance. Neither of them say why. You don't ask. Later, after the sun falls and the moon rises clean and round, the bees go still again. The field cools. A candle burns low on your sill, its light thin but determined. You check the hives one last time, no buzzing, no movement, just that deep, sacred silence of wings folded in warmth, and in the quiet you feel the weight of the day. The sweetness of shared joy, the way even the smallest creatures are given a place in it. Tomorrow the bees will rise again. But tonight they rest, like you, like the bride, now wrapped in her new home. Like the hives, sealed with moss and faith, and in the dark, something soft and eternal breathes around the edges of your life, familiar, old as wax, patient as honey. Section 14. Your hands remember the stings. Not the pain, not exactly, but the way your skin swelled, the heat, the pulsing, the hours after when even breathing near the hives felt risky. You were 12 the first time a full swarm turned on you, when you moved too quickly, when you reached for a comb without smoke or sense, when you thought you understood. You didn't. The bees taught you otherwise. Your eyelids puffed shut. Your fingers doubled in size. You walked home dazed, red and humming from within like someone who'd swallowed a storm. And your father. He didn't scold you. He set you down, handed you a damp cloth, and told you a story of his first sting. Of the week he cried every night, convinced the bees hated him. Of the day he stopped fearing the pain and started respecting the lesson. You learned that day not just about bees, about patience, about rhythm, about waiting longer than feels natural before doing anything. Now you watch your own apprentice, your son, navigate that same path. He was stung yesterday. Twice on the wrist, once behind the knee. He didn't cry, but his silence afterward was its own kind of confession. You didn't say much, just poured a bowl of cold water, laid down the jar of salve, and sat beside him. He soaked his hand, watched the redness rise, then said, "I didn't smoke them first." You nodded. That was all. He stayed in the cottage today, helping his sister with candles, watching the wax melt into the wooden moulds. Listening maybe to the hives through the walls. That's part of the learning too, the stillness. You step out into the yard, the winter sun low and white. It paints everything pale, your boots, the edges of the roof, the curled straw around the hives. You kneel at the youngest skep. One of last spring's splits. She's holding, but barely. You can tell by the hum. Thinner, hesitant. You remember how much your son loved this one? How he'd sit beside it every evening, scribbling in his little book, giving the bees names based on how they landed. You open the lid a crack. Inside, movement. But slow. Too slow. You fetch the winter feed from the shed, old honey thinned with warm water and rosemary. You dribble it near the centre, careful not to disturb the comb. The bees find it quickly. One lands on your glove. Walks up your sleeve, then down again. No sting, just curiosity. You smile. The hive will live. Maybe. Fringe keepers say some hives respond better when you talk to them. That if you speak low, calm, they remember your voice. One tale even says bees recognize kindness. That if you're generous with them, they grow gentler over time. Historians raise eyebrows at this, but they never kept a skep alive through 5 winters. You have. And if that's not proof, it's at least experience. You finish the feeding, close the lid, your breath fogs in the cold. A few flakes fall, not much, but enough. You shake the snow from your hat, glance back at the house. Your daughter watches from the window, candlelight warm behind her. She holds her sketchbook open, drawing maybe. Or just pretending. Inside, your son sits with a spoonful of honey and a too large book on bee behaviour written in Latin he can't quite translate. You gave it to him anyway. Let him wonder. You remember when you were that age, flipping through the same pages, pretending the swirls of ink made sense, imagining what secrets might be hiding in the margins. Some days they still do. Later you return to the bench. The snow has stopped. The hives wear it like hats, soft, uneven, glistening. You brush it away gently, not because it harms them, just so they can breathe. You hear wings faint from within, still alive, still trying. You think about your first year again, all the mistakes, feeding too late. Forgetting to tip the skeps during the freeze, losing half your colonies by February. You didn't sleep much that winter. Kept a lantern by the door, checked the hives 3 times a night. Your father never stopped you. He let the cold teach you where words couldn't. The memory doesn't hurt anymore, but it still hums in your bones. A sting of a different kind. Your son steps out beside you. He doesn't speak at first. Just stands there watching the field. Then, the one by the south fence. It's quieter than it should be. You nod. You fed her? He nods back. You don't say good. You don't have to. Instead, you pass him the old smoker, still warm from earlier. Tomorrow, you say. We check the frame on Grace. He doesn't smile, just grips the smoker tighter. Okay, he says. And that's it. You sit together for a while watching the flakes return, small, soft, harmless for now, and you wonder how many stings it takes before a hand stops flinching. You don't know the number, but you know the silence that follows. It sounds like this. Section 15. They used to come every Candlemas. Monks from the Hill Abbey, 2, sometimes 3, walking the narrow path past the river, cloaks bundled, sandals wrapped in wool, always silent, always watching. Their robes smelled of ink and old paper, but their hands were soft from beeswax, proof they worked more than they preached. They came for your wax, not your honey. Not the mead, the wax. You remember how they'd hold each ball of pressed gold like it was sacred. Turn it in their palms, weigh it with their eyes. They'd nod once, and then one of them, usually the oldest, would take out the little leather pouch tied to his waist and hand you a few silver coins. Not much, just enough. Sometimes they brought bread. Once a book with no words, just empty pages waiting, and once they brought a candle, tall, smooth and pale as bone. They said it had burned through every prayer for 3 months straight without sputtering. It was made from your wax. You still have the stub of it somewhere, tucked in the back of the cupboard, wrapped in linen, buried under old seed packets and a broken butter mould. You keep it not because it's useful, but because it reminds you that even in silence the bees are present, and their labour, your labour, has lit chapels, warmed kitchens and sealed letters carried across oceans. This time of year the friars don't walk anymore. Too cold, too far. They send word ahead. One of the novices rides down with a mule and a list, but you still prepare the wax the same way. You melt it slowly, skimming off the debris. You strain it through cloth, pour it into round moulds carved by your grandfather. Let them cool in the cellar's darkest corner. When you lift them days later, they're smooth and cool and smell faintly of smoke and summer. You mark each with your father's stamp, an old iron seal shaped like a bee, dented now but still good. Your daughter carries them to the mule cart when the friar arrives. She wraps each in wool scraps, places them in the basket like eggs. The novice barely says a word. Just nods, hands over a folded note with thanks. You read it aloud in the evening. Still the finest wax in the valley, still grateful for the light. You fold the note and place it beside the candle stub. Your son watches all this from his place at the hearth. He asks, "Why don't they make their own?" You smile. "They do." But it takes time. He doesn't understand yet that it's not about ability, it's about trust. They could raise bees, they could harvest wax, but they don't. Because they know yours is clean, honest, burned in silence and sealed with smoke. That matters. Wax is more than light, it's memory. It's ritual. In spring you'll tithe some of the honey too. The friars keep a small jar in the sacristy. For wounds, for ceremony, once for a dying man who whispered his last words between sips of your hive's gold. No one spoke of that again, but the jar came back lighter. You check the skeps near the chapel path more often now. You never know who will walk past, who might need the comfort of a living hum or the shadow of a low-flying scout on their shoulder. Some say bees dislike churches, that they sense too much sorrow in the stone. But your hives by the chapel wall have always thrived. Maybe it's the way the bells ring at noon, soft, regular like a queen's pulse, or maybe bees just like quiet places. You remember one season, years ago, when the friars sent a carved image with your wax, a bee cast in relief on a tall taper, wings spread over the Virgin's feet. They placed it beside the altar. It burned for 7 days. You never asked why, but you never stopped sending the wax. Now, as you dip another wick, roll it smooth and set it on the sill, your daughter says, "We should make one for us." You look up. "A candle?" She nods. "A big one, just for us." For the longest night. You don't argue. That night is coming, and a candle made from your bees, lit in your house, burning through the dark. That's something worth doing. Together, you pour the wax, you twist the wick. You hum while she ties the ribbon around the base, blue and red, the colours of old prayers, and when it cools, you place it in the centre of the table, not to be sold, not to be gifted, just to burn, a light for your family. From the bees, from the silence, from the field. Section 16. You dream of wings sometimes, not flying, just the sound, a soft chorus woven through the air like silk. You wake with it still in your ears, even in the dead of winter, even when the hives are buried under frost and silence. You lie there in the dark, listening, and you don't know if the sound is memory or something deeper. It's not frightening. It's company. You rise before the sun, always have. Not for chores, not for obligation, for the stillness. The house sleeps as you pull on your boots, wrap a wool scarf around your neck and step into the yard. The frost is thin today, a sheet of white over the grass. Your footprints bloom behind you, one by one. The hives looked like small cottages under the soft blue sky, each with its own breath, its own heat, hidden just beneath the straw. You walk to Grace first. Always Grace. You kneel, press your hand against the side. Nothing. You wait. Still. Then, just barely, a tremble, alive. You sit on the overturned pail beside the hive and breathe out slowly. Your breath hangs in the air, the world is quiet, even the birds are still thinking about waking. And then you speak. You don't know why, it's not a habit. Not really, but today you whisper, I'm still here, to the bees. To the hive, to yourself, maybe all three. You remember when Grace's queen died, how the hive fell quiet, how the workers paced, listless, uncertain. You remember how you waited, watched for signs of replacement, of rebuilding, and how one day a new queen emerged, not with ceremony, but with the simple fact of presence. She began laying within hours. Then, the hive lived. Your son watched it happen, asked you why they didn't mourn. You told him they did, just differently, not with tears. With order, with movement. Historians still argue whether medieval keepers performed funerals for dead hives. Some say no. Others point to strange rituals, hives turned toward the chapel, cloths draped over skeps, even bells rung in their honor. You've never done that. But you have stood over an empty hive with your hand on the lid and your head bowed, not in prayer, just in thanks. And when your father died, you did what he once told you to do. You told the bees, you walked to each hive, spoke his name, said he had passed. It felt foolish at first. But the field was quiet for days afterward, not silent, just softer. As if the bees understood, or as if in speaking you gave your grief a place to rest. Today the grief is quieter. But it never leaves. It just settles, like wax cooling in a mold, taking the shape of whatever life hands you next. You stand, brush straw from your knees, and walk the line of hives once more. Each gets a touch, a word, a moment. At the last skep, the youngest, you find a surprise, a bee. Outside, wings still, legs tuck. Frozen, you crouch beside her, watch her for a while. She's not moving, but there's no snow on her yet, no bite of frost in her shell. You lift her gently. Place her in your gloved hand, hold her to your chest. Sometimes, if you're fast enough, the warmth brings them back. Sometimes not. You wait 1 minute, 2, 3, no movement. You lower your hand, set her on the edge of the skep, let the morning sun find her first. Inside, your daughter stirs. You hear the creak of the door, the soft pad of her boots over the frozen grass. She joins you without a word. She sees the bee, bows her head slightly, then says, "Let's light the candle." You nod. Together, you return to the cottage. Inside, the candle waits, tall, simple, made from the season's wax and wrapped with ribbon. She strikes the flint. The wick catches, a steady flame, no flicker. The warmth fills the room instantly. The scent of summer, trapped in wax, released again like breath. She pours tea. You sit by the window, watch the hives. The bee doesn't move. But the hives do, just barely, enough to know there is life inside. You sip the tea slowly, feel the sting on your wrist from weeks ago, still faintly warm. Still healing, the bees are sleeping, but you. You are remembering, and in that remembering, the field lives again, even now. Even here, where breath fogs the glass, and the only sound is wax melting into light. Section 17. The thaw comes quietly. Not with trumpets or sunbursts, just a slow trickle down the rain barrel, a softness in the dirt beneath your boots, the way the air loses its bite. Somewhere in the trees a bird stammers out a few notes, testing the morning. You step into the field, boots wet from melted frost. The straw around the hives has darkened with damp, the cords grown loose in the night. You retie them one by one, your fingers stiff but sure. You know this dance. You've done it every year since your hands were small enough to fit inside your father's gloves. The bees aren't out yet. Not fully, but inside, oh, they're moving. You feel it through the walls of the skeps. Not a hum, exactly, not yet. A restlessness, a promise. They've clustered through the cold, tight around the queen, wings shivering to keep her warm, to keep each other warm, 1,000 tiny hearts refusing stillness. And now, As the world turns soft again, they remember flight. You open grace first. Slowly, carefully, the lid creaks against the moisture in the air. Inside, life. The combs hang heavy, darkened from winter. You spot her, your queen. Still moving, slower but alive, the workers crawl over her gently, feeding, cleaning, waiting for her signal. You close the hive gently, breathe out. One more winter survived. You visit the others, most held, a few didn't. You mark those with chalk, a thin X along the base. Later, you'll carry them to the far end of the garden, open them in silence, burn what must be burned. Clean what can be saved, no words, just action. Your son joins you near the south line. He doesn't ask which hives are gone, he already knows. He kneels beside one of the empties, brushes away a cluster of wax moth webbing, doesn't speak. You let him be, his grief is quieter than yours, but no less sharp. At noon the first bee rises, just one, a scout. She hovers in the doorway of her skep, legs twitching, wings stuttering in the breeze. You watch her lift, spin once, twice, then dart out into the open air, high and true. Your daughter cheers from the porch, hands cupped to her mouth. The sound echoes faintly across the trees, more bees follow, the sky fills. Not with noise, not yet, just movement, lines of gold and shadow against the pale blue. A hum begins to rise, not loud but steady. It vibrates through your boots, through your bones. They've woken, and with them, the field. Your daughter runs to the edge of the hives, her ribboned braid bouncing behind her. She stops just short, kneels, and places a stone on the ground. Flat, smooth, sun-warmed, you recognize it, the same kind you placed by the North Watch months ago. She's learned, your son pulls the smoker from its hook, not to light it, just to hold it. To feel its shape again in his palm, you lift your face to the sky. The breeze carries the scent of thawing earth, of moss, of honey warming inside the comb. The hives are singing again, not loudly, but enough. Inside, the candle has burned down to half, wax pools along the base, curling into a petal shape, frozen mid-drip. You'll keep that one. It's a record now, of waiting, of holding on, of light that didn't flicker even when the dark stretched longest. Your son tugs your sleeve, points. A bee has landed on your shoulder, still, warm. Watching, you stand still, she stays. Then gently she lifts, and you smile, because she remembered. She remembered your scent, she remembered the sound of your steps, she remembered what was safe. And now she returns to the hive to tell the others, he's still here. You turn to your children, and together you walk the rows, you hum. You check, you remember, you begin again. And now, as the bees settle again in their hives and the candlelight dims against the wood grain of the window pane, you sit in the stillness, no need to move, no need to speak. Outside, the field breathes its quiet rhythm, the wax cools, the honey thickens. The skeps rise like small shoulders beneath the stars. You close your eyes, feel the hum still in your ears, not loud, not sharp, just there. A song without words, a presence, the fire crackles low. The house holds its warmth, and in the soft hush between footsteps and dreams, you remember that everything important is small. A bee's wing, a wisp of smoke, a whispered name, a single jar of honey left on a chapel step. You are not the master of this place. You are its keeper, and as the bees sleep, wrapped in wax and silence, you do too, with the knowledge that tomorrow they'll rise. And so will you, so rest now, let your breath fall in time with theirs. Let the warmth of your blankets mimic the cluster, let the dark hold you, not with fear, but with understanding. You have kept the bees, and they have kept you. Sleep well,